Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be making my annual Christmas card. Every single year I make my own Christmas cards. These are some items I've picked out for today's video. I have my Big Kick Sizzix. So this rolls out die cuts if you're not familiar. And then I have the plates, which are heavily used. Probably should put new ones in there. And I have this goes in the machine. It's the platform that you need to roll things out. And then I also have a folder. This is by Doris. I don't know if you can see that good in the camera. There's a glare here. And what you do here is you put cardstock in here and you roll it through the machine and it imprints or embosses the pictures you see here. It imprints it right on the cardstock. So I'm going to be doing this here as my cover of my card. And then what I thought I would do is I thought I would take this big punch, which is a scalloped square, and I'm going to punch it through the middle of the embossed card. And once it's cut out from here, you'll be able to look through the front of the card into the greeting. And I haven't picked out the greeting yet. I think I'll rubber stamp it and it will say like Merry Christmas. Something like that. I'll have to find one to do. So this year I wanted my card base to be red. On top of the red, I'm going to be layering white. And the white is what I will be embossing with this embossing folder. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your red cardstock and you're going to fold it in half. Then you're going to fold it in half again. If you didn't see any of my prior videos about card making, this is a bone folder, which just makes the crease better. Then you're going to take your paper trimmer and you're going to go ahead and you're going to cut down this middle crease here, and that's going to give you 2 cards. So there you have 2 cards all ready to go. Now, one thing I've noticed about these embossing folders, or some of them anyway, some of them can be smaller, but this particular one is actually 4 1/4 inches by 5 3/4 inches, so it's actually going to be bigger than what I need. When you are putting a layer on top of a card, it's got to be smaller than your actual card. I'm going to fold this. Now for this paper, because it's going to be the overlay of my greeting card, I'm going to cut it down the middle just like I did the red paper. Now I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch off of each side. One long side and one short side. I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch off of each. Now I'm going to take this paper on the crease and cut that in half. So what I end up with is a greeting card with a white overlay. And then you go ahead and you do this for as many cards as you want to make. It's been a while since I've used an embossing folder, so I just cut up a piece of ivory paper that was left over from a different project. And I'm going to go ahead and use this as an example just to see how it turns out. With the embossing folders, the machine platform here tells you the instructions. So you're going to put the platform, and there's 2 flaps, but you're going to keep those open. Otherwise it's too thick to emboss through the machine. So you're going to open the platform and put a clear cutting pad down, then your embossing folder and paper, and then your other clear cutting pad. And you just stick it through the machine and roll it through. As you see, when you pull the embossing folder up, the card is embossed. Hopefully you can see that, and it goes through both sides. So now I've gone ahead and I've rolled out all of these. One embossed side is puffy and the other side is kind of indented. It doesn't matter which one you want to use. I'm going to use the puffy side because I'm going to apply some chalk and I want it to get that color elevated. I have a little basket here of assorted colors. I have blue, pinks, reds, yellows, and greens. Then I also have these makeup sponges from the Dollar Tree. And I keep these on hand in this little jar for chalking. So in looking at this embossing detail, I can see there are different elements. There are Christmas balls, there's ribbon, there's snowflakes, there's stars, all kinds of things. So I'm going to go ahead and use an assortment of chalk. So if you're doing a project like this with different types of elements on the actual embossing, feel free to do whatever you want to do. It's your card, it's your creation. When I do a tutorial like this, it's just to give an example, but everybody has an imagination and there is no wrong way on how to do this. I'm going to start with the red. So I'm going to take my reds, and I want a nice Christmas red. So I'm going to go with this one down here. You're just going to pat your makeup sponge in it and then run it over the embossed image. Now, if you get it on another image, such as the star, don't worry. We're going to fix that next. Now, once you've gone ahead and chalked the first color, then you can pick out the second color you want to use and chalk over all the other embossed features. I have these pretty blues, and one of the features on the card is a snowflake, so I'm going to go ahead and use the lightest blue here. It's like an ice blue, and I'm going to use that to emboss the snowflakes. So as you can see, I went ahead and I embossed the snowflakes in that really pretty light blue, and the chalk is just blending. So as I mentioned earlier, even if you get it out of the lines, or if you get it on another element, like you get the blue on a star, or you got the red on a star, then now we're just going to go ahead and take our yellow and go over the stars. And in doing that, it's going to blend with the other colors. And I do want to say that I do use a new makeup sponge every time for every color, because I don't want to muddle it up too much with the different colors. You also want to be careful because I accidentally bent this when I was applying one of the chalks. So that's the downside of using like a thin cardstock. It bends easily. So as you see here, I had blended the red up into the star, but now I just added the yellow and it's nice and blended. So that's how you go ahead and fix if you colored out of the lines. So for example, you can see this star here is more of the pink color. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply the yellow. And you can see it blended it right away. Now I'm going to take this punch I have, it's a corner punch, and I'm just going to punch the four corners of the card. It makes them rounded. So you can see how that turns out. Now, what I've decided to do, because my card has a red base, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chalk all the way around in red. And I'm going to use that same color down here that I used for the ornaments. You take that card and you just chalk around the edges, just like that. So you see how it just glides onto the edges. Just to give it a border. That's all there is to that. Very simple. Once you got the borders all done, you can see how it came together and you can also go back over some of the lighter chalks. Like this snowflake here is a little light, so I'm going to go back over that with the blue. And you can continue doing that for all of the elements that you embossed, just to make the card look a little more finished. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your overlay and you're going to take your punch. It's okay if it cuts off some of the elements on the card, but you definitely want to make sure that the cardstock is centered. I just did a practice one and you can see it's not centered. So I just eyeballed it and that's pretty close. I'm not dissatisfied with that. If you sell your work, you're going to want to measure. I don't sell my work, so that's how it turned out. It's fun too because some of the elements are on that, and then you can use this as a gift tag. To make the punch through the card, I'm going to line the overlay up on the card, slide it through the punch, and then line it up. Once I have it lined up, then I'll remove the overlay and then I'll punch the card. That way, when you pull the card out of the punch, it lines up with the overlay. Now that we got the base done with the overlay and all the punch outs, now I'm going to be gluing down the two pieces together. And I'm just using a glue stick. And now I'm just lining up the overlay with the card. Like that. Then I thought of a really fun idea. I have this ribbon punch. And I thought it would be fun to punch the top. So I made the punch. Then I'm going to take my red ribbon and make it into a bow through that punch. I'm going to cut a piece about this long off, maybe 6 to 8 inches, and then just thread it through the whole punch holes. And you want to make sure it's narrow ribbon. And then once it's threaded, I'm just going to tie it into a little bow, just like if you were tying shoelaces. Look how cute. Now, if you don't have a ribbon punch and you don't want to buy a ribbon punch, the Dollar Tree, Walmart, any kind of store like that, even a craft store, usually sells this time of year little mini red bows. So that's another option you could use if you didn't want to go through the trouble of punching out the holes and threading the ribbon through and all that. And then you could just glue those on or use a glue dot to adhere them. After I went ahead and put all the bows on, I went over the chalk again just to make the color pop a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want it to show up. And working with the cards, it kind of rubbed off. So I just wanted to go ahead and spruce that up a little bit. I also decided to go ahead and trim up the red around the top and bottom of the overlay. So the result is this, where it's just more uniform all the way around. And I also took my corner punch and I punched both corners on the overlay and both corners on the cardstock, because the cardstock had come out as a square over the overlay, so I went ahead and trimmed all that up. I went ahead and cut up white cardstock to fit in the card. Now I'm going to do the same thing and just round the edges. I thought about embossing the same design as on the front. So instead of embossing the inside, I just went ahead and I chalked in the red around the white insert. Also what I did was I lined it up with the top page. So I lined it up here to make sure that it didn't go past the edge. And I put the glue on, and then I closed it from the back. That way it would assure that I wasn't going past the edge and that it was centered around the cutout. So this one is glued, and I'm just making sure it doesn't go past that edge. And then I just shut it. So that's what they look like once the middles are glued in. Just going to give you that nice white window to stamp on. So I thought it would be fun to stamp the inside message with red ink. Now what you want to look for is dye, a dye pad, such as this one or this one. Now my stamping supplies are from years ago, so I don't even know if these are available anymore. I really have no idea. It's been years since I shopped for supplies. However, the pigment ink pads that you may find are for heat embossing with a heat gun, because those will smear. So you definitely want to use a dye pad. And you just take your rubber stamp, and I found one that says Merry Christmas. I did a test run just to see how it would come out. And you just want to blot it. I'm going to do another test one because the first test one didn't come out so great. And you're just going to put even pressure over it. It came out a little better. So you can see that. And I thought that would look pretty since it's a red card and chalked with a red bow. I thought the red Merry Christmas would look the best. Now I could have went ahead and embossed the Merry Christmas with the heat gun, but I chose not to. I do have red embossing powders, so you can absolutely do a red embossed image for the wording. But I just thought it would be fun to do red ink. And I'm going to center it in the square I made. Center it to assure that it gets to the back of the card. And thankfully that came out okay. So there you go. There's plenty of room inside. I did chalk the inside, but there's plenty of room to write your message, to tell your loved ones who it's from. Look at that. Now that I have all the cards made, I'm going to be making envelopes. And I have this really cool envelope punch board, and it gives you all of the card sizes. Then it tells you, based on your card size, what paper size you need and where the score line is. My cards are about 5 and just under 5. So about 5 by 4.5, 5 by 4 3/4. So I'm going to go up to the 5 by 5. It's showing me I need an 8 1/8 by 8 1/8. And the score lines are going to be on 4 1/8. I was at a Staples supply store, was a package of paper that had red copy paper in it. So these are 8 1/2 by 11. So now I'm going to trim them down using my paper trimmer with a ruler. I'm going to trim these down to 8 1/8. So after I trim to the paper, it says to punch out at 4 1/8, which is 4 1/8 is there. So I took the paper and I went around. I laid it at 4 1/8 on its edge, like so. And then I punched it. And then I also used my bone folder to crease it. And this is how it turned out. And then it fits the card like that. If you need help folding at the crease, you can always use a ruler with a sharp edge just to help guide the creased fold. Isn't that pretty? Now, of course, you can embellish your cards any way you want. I didn't use glitter this year. Usually I add glitter or glitter glue or some other element to sparkle it up. This year, I'm just leaving it simple. Let me know if you have any ideas for making your homemade Christmas cards or what you plan on doing this year. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a tip or two. Take care.